Hey everybody, I'm Sam Haymart and you're watching Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2025 Range Rover Sport Autobiography, and this is a plug-in hybrid, a very powerful, well-loaded luxury SUV. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. All right, my friends, let's have a look at the car that Range Rover has given us today. The Range Rover Sport for 2025 looks pretty good bit familiar because it has been around in its current guise for about 2 years, 2023, 24, and 25. This is the smaller sibling to the larger Range Rover. They're sort of twins, at least platform mates, as it were. Now, this is a very well-loaded Autobiography Range Rover Sport plug-in hybrid. As tested, we're about $137,000, maybe just a slight tick less, $136 and some change. This has a lot of options on it, and as we go through our little bit of a walk around, I'll point some of those out. It's a beautiful color, and one of the things I love about this trim grade and the way this one's outfitted are the many accents that this has in black chrome. Black chrome wheels. These are an optional wheel, 23 inches. Optional red calipers in there that really sort of set off with the rest of the coloring going on. And as we go around, one of the things I like are the copper bronze accents that you see in sort of a satin finish. For me, for my eye, it really just goes along well with the overall shape and design aesthetic. And that's one of the things I've always really loved about the Range Rover brand is the down-to-business design aesthetic that is just something different from everything else in the market and something very unique to the brand. Down on the side, this has power deployable running boards. Now, I don't really think they're necessary on a vehicle like this. We're not a big monster truck here, and frankly, I have turned them off in my week with the vehicle. I find that they just reach out and grab my shin and hurt me every time I'm trying to get in and out of the vehicle because I don't expect them to be there. And again, to me, they're just not necessary. Maybe if I were shorter, maybe a lady, I wanted to be more graceful, they're good. So you can turn them off if you don't want them. If you want them, there they are. And you can control those too for when you're doing off-roading and that sort of thing. Coming around to the rear three-quarter view, you can see that this has the lower roofline of the Sport and a very classic Range Rover roofline with the slanted rear window, built-in spoiler on this one, beautiful LED taillights. In the night shot, you can see that those work quite well. Getting down to the lower bumper, this has big exhaust tips that are decorative, but they're also functional. They are the real deal, not the fake ones like you see on some of our other competing brands. Power liftgate at the rear, as you would expect at this price point. And because this is a plug-in hybrid, this has both a gas door on the right side and on the left side, a mirror image door, but that one is where you plug it in to charge it when you want to have the battery charged up. This has a 32 kilowatt hour battery, and that gives it a 53-mile electric-only range to go along with its inline-six turbocharged gasoline engine. And we'll talk a little bit more about the powertrain and how that all works when we get out for a drive, but those are the basics on the outside. Coming to the interior of the Range Rover Sport, this is a place I want to tell you a quick story. When I graduated from college, my big gift was a very expensive leather briefcase. It was very nice. It was a hard case. This was a few decades back, but it was one of the most high quality, tailored, built, custom made items I'd ever owned at that time. It had a suede leather interior, lots of pockets, and every time I would open it up, the smell of rich leather would just come out of it. And I absolutely loved this briefcase, and it really sort of set the bar for what I really look at luxury car interiors to be. And one of the things I love about Range Rover, and I always have about their vehicles, is a level of workmanship, craftsmanship, and sort of that same design aesthetic that I really loved about my custom briefcase way back in the day. And as I look around the Range Rover Sport, this Autobiography just has some brilliantly conceived finishes. It's got fit and finish that's really some of the best I've ever seen. And it's just really beautiful to look at. Semi-aniline leather seats. These are heated and ventilated, multi-adjustable memory, They're exceptionally comfortable, and I've just really enjoyed spending time in them this week. The steering wheel, of course, is a heated leather steering wheel. And just look at all of the nice trimming. We've got lots of piano black, which some people like, some people don't, because it does show the fingerprints. But along with the black chrome accents and the two-tone leather that we have in here, I just really like the look of it. And over on the door panels, we have a nice custom bespoke carbon fiber finish on there that really just sort of fits with everything going on. As to the technology, virtually everything that's available in any car today is here. A nice digital instrument cluster ahead of me that is fully customizable, and it's just not the same old square that we see in a lot of cars. It's got some shape to it, it's got some design to it, and best of all, it's hooded so that the sun glare doesn't bounce off of that and make it difficult to read as you're driving along. Paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Over in the center, a nice 13 and some change inch display infotainment. Now it's got a little bit of a curve to it, which is unusual. I will tell you that using this system isn't exactly the easiest in the world. It took me several days driving this vehicle to fully embrace and get used to the menu systems and how to navigate around. Honestly, when I first got into this vehicle, just finding the climate controls, finding the volume for the audio, and sort of locating where those things are really took a little bit of time. I had to stop, shut off the vehicle, or rather put it in park, and spend some time figuring that out. Luckily, wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, so if you are used to using that interface for your entertainment at the very least, and perhaps your navigation, that's really easy once that is hooked up. Looking around the interior, this does have quite a few options. This does have the protection package, which means these nice rubber floor mats, and there's a lot of versatility. There are nice deep cup holders here. There's a storage area here, wireless phone charger, and deep inside here, cooled box to keep your things in. You can put some cold drinks in there, and that will help keep those drinks cold. Above me is a panoramic sunroof. The front half is a tilt and slide. And of course you can shut that cover if you don't want to have the sun on you all day, but it's just a really nice open, airy atmosphere, especially with all the dark materials in here to have that opportunity. One of the details that I really noticed were up here above my head. Even the handles up here aren't the cheap plastic things we find in a lot of vehicles. They feel like something that came from expensive luggage. Very nice. The rear passenger compartment is a very welcome and roomy place to be, even though we are technically in the smaller of the Range Rover twins, that being the Sport. This is a vehicle you could still use as something that you were chauffeuring people around in. There's plenty of leg room. These seats are set for my height, about 5'8" to 5'9", depending on my footwear. And I've got plenty of space, as you can see. One of the cool things is this does have power reclining seats back here, so you can adjust these to get them where you want them. There's a fold down armrest here that's got storage in the center and a nice big cup holder there. And just the quality back here, the trim, everything is just as nicely put together as it is up front. Sitting on the outboard seats, these are pretty comfortable. They hold you pretty well, and the seating position feels very natural to me. As far as heating and ventilation, there are vents on the back of the console. There are controls on the back of the console. There's even some vents up here up on the roof. We have window shades back here in the back so that you can shade your rear passengers. Maybe there's a baby back here. So it's a good place to be. They've done this very well. Now these seats do fold down in a 60-40 split. They are power operated, so a button at the back, you can put those down. You can raise them back up without having to do a lot of gyrations. The bar you see across the center is the pull shade, and that is easily removable. I just didn't for our shot here. The cargo area is pretty generous, and with the protection package that this has, a nice big rubber mat across that protecting the carpet. And because we do have a relatively upright vehicle, there's a good amount of tall space back there. Underneath that floor, you will also find a spare tire, which is nice. A lot of SUVs, particularly when we start talking about a plug-in hybrid where they add batteries and things like that, you sometimes lose the spare tire. Even here, we still have one. All right, my friends, let's take a drive. The first thing we want to say is when you fire this up, when you get in it, you press the start button, you don't necessarily hear the engine start up, and that's because we are in a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. If your battery is full, this will default to EV mode every time you start it. You can go into the screen and you can change the modes to hybrid mode or save. Save means that that's going to run on the gasoline engine and save your charged battery for another time that you want to use that specifically. The thing to know though is every time you get in it, it's going to default automatically to EV mode, and it'll use that battery up until such time as it's depleted, and then it will go to a standard hybrid or gasoline engine mode. So what is under the hood? This has an inline turbocharged 6-cylinder engine. It has an 8-speed automatic transmission. Between the two of those, a pretty powerful electric motor, 141 horsepower to be exact. Combined, this has a total system horsepower of 542 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. That is a pretty good amount of power, but keep in mind, this is a pretty heavy vehicle too, because it does have all of this hardware. It still takes a bit of this power just to move this vehicle around. Here we are right now, we're rolling along in EV mode. This is whisper quiet. This is a peaceful existence in here. Very comfortable, very quiet. And I've got the suspension set on comfort right now. This has an adaptive air suspension, so you can go in and set that to a number of different ways. You can set it to be automatic, you can set it to dynamic, which is essentially a stiffer, sportier mode. Or you can also adjust it to raise the ride height if you're going to be driving in snow or maybe on a dirt road or doing some level of off-roading. But I'll have to tell you, this vehicle, while it is a Range Rover, it's really not dialed for off-roading. There is a Land Rover Defender if that's what you want to do. Power is brisk, even in EV mode, but if you really mash the pedal, even in EV mode, this will fire up the gasoline engine and bring all of the power sources to bear to give you that full 542 horsepower. Now, when it comes to gas mileage, this is rated at 21 city, 22 highway, and 21 mpg combined, and that's not taking into account the electric power. That is specifically talking about this operating purely as a gasoline vehicle. When it comes to EV operation, this is rated at 53 mpge, which is not really high. It's not the most efficient way to have an EV because it is carrying around a vehicle with a gas engine, a regular transmission, all those other things. It's not designed to be the most efficient EV. And if you look at EVs that are pure, they see MPG levels in the 80s, 90s, and even over 100. So this is about half the efficiency of a normal EV. You do get 53 miles of range on a fully charged battery, and you do have a lot of other perks. Now, when this is operating with both the gas engine and the electric motor does a lot to smooth out the powertrain on this. And that is to say, what I found that when the battery is depleted, and this is running purely on the gasoline engine or in hybrid mode, the transmission shifting and the power take up from a stop driving around town can be a little bit abrupt. You mash the pedal, you can hear the gas engine, woo, very brisk. It works quite well, but it does take sometimes a moment or two for this powertrain to catch up with putting all of that together. So it's not an immediate rush that you get from a traditional gasoline powered vehicle. This engine though, very smooth, very silky, everything you'd expect from an inline six. I absolutely love the sound of it, and it's befitting of a luxury vehicle like this. Now the ride is very quiet, even with these large tires and wheels. It's got a nice refined demeanor to it. In comfort mode, it's got that traditional Range Rover kind of la-li-la, woo, everything's fine in the world. And as I mentioned, it's very quiet. Even out on the highway, the tire noise from these big tires very low, wind noise very low, even with this big panoramic roof. The adaptive suspension is very good at immediately tightening up if you start throwing some evasive maneuvers at this. If you mash the power pedal, if you start mashing the brakes, if you start dialing in steering inputs that are above and beyond the norm, it will stiffen that suspension up to give you the reaction that you need to help you stay in control. This does have standard all-wheel drive, although it's no longer the full-time four-wheel drive that these used to have. This has a disconnect. It operates in two-wheel drive most of the time, only dials up four-wheel traction when it's needed, and when you dial it in with the drive modes, if you're doing some off-road modes and whatnot, most of the time we're operating as a two-wheel drive vehicle, and that helps save fuel, that helps make it more efficient, And at some level, that gives you a little bit more performance as well. It does have a 2-speed transfer case. So when you do start dialing it in for off-roading, climbing hills, doing that sort of thing, it does have the hardware to get you there. It's not a soft roader entirely, but with these tires and wheels that this has, these low profile tires, not the best combination if you really intend to go a rock climbing or driving over big, deep rutted paths. It has the ground clearance, it's got the traction hardware, but it's not necessarily wearing the shoes for that kind of a hike, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, so this is a vehicle that has a very comfortable, refined driving character that is befitting of its price. And that, to me, is one of the most important things when we start talking about luxury vehicles, that if you're going to spend the money, you want to have the driving experience that reflects the price tag that you spent. And this vehicle does that. All right, my dear friends, let's wrap this up. We've walked around it, we've sat inside it, we've gone for a little drive, and we've talked about some of the different areas of, well, conversation about this vehicle. And so, summing it up, what I will tell you is the same thing that I told my friends when they just wanted a quick, short answer when they said, hey, what's that like? And my quick answer was simply this: if I had all the money in the world to spend on an extravagant luxury item, I would get this. And I mean that tongue in cheek, but I also mean that quite seriously. This is a big, rich, thick piece of chocolate mousse that you get at a fine restaurant. You don't need this. There are plenty of other vehicles that will get you from point A to point B for half the money, for a quarter of the money of this vehicle, and do it pretty well. This is a vehicle you buy because you love the way it looks, you love the way it feels, you love the way the interior smells, and it's a luxury item. And in that way, what I will tell you is that this is a vehicle that, in my recommendation and opinion, you lease this. You do not purchase this. You lease it, you write it off on your business expenses if that's where you're at, and you give it back before the warranty's up, because you don't want this vehicle when it's old and it's got miles on it. If you're one of the people out there that comment on our videos all the time and you always say, what's it going to be like when it's got 100,000 miles on it? Well, you don't buy this if you're that person. You just don't do it. Don't do it. Not unless you have an unlimited bank account, because luxury vehicles, doesn't matter the brand, Mercedes, BMW, Jaguar, Land Rover, you don't want them when they're old unless you are a glutton for punishment and you've got money to be punished. That's just the way it is. You lease this, and I'm fine with that. That's what I would do. Even if I had all the money in the world, I won the lottery, I had billions of dollars, I would still lease this and give it back before the warranty's up. Then I'd go get another one and another one and another one. I always have the newest thing, right? So a lot of people don't agree with me on that, but if you've owned one of these, you probably might agree with me. That said, there is a beauty to a vehicle like this. It's the looks, it's the feel, it's the smell. And as I said when we did our walk around, I just love the Land Rover, Range Rover design aesthetic. It's masculine, it's classy, it's high end. And some people buy a car for what it says about them. I buy a car because what it speaks to me. And this is a car that speaks to me in a lot of ways. And we talked about some of those. The other thing I would say is that the plug-in hybrid is a vehicle that is only for a very small group of people. Not everybody needs a plug-in hybrid. It depends on your driving habits and what you want out of the vehicle, because a plug-in hybrid is a compromise. It's not the best EV, it's not the best hybrid, and it's not the best gasoline vehicle, because it's putting all of those three things into one. There are compromises. It's the extra weight, the complexity, and because of that, it's not efficient on gasoline. If you compare this to a straight EV, it's not an efficient EV vehicle. And as a hybrid, it certainly isn't efficient. You saw the gas mileage numbers. You can get better gas mileage numbers with a straight up gas vehicle. I would suggest that if you had the V8, even just the plain straight 6, that you're probably going to be able to achieve better MPG depending on how you drive, because the extra weight of all of the electrics, it does cause this thing to be less efficient in that way. But that said, if you have a 25 or 30 mile round trip every day and you can plug this in every night, this makes a nice little EV that you can also drive from Phoenix to LA if you need to, without worried about, oh gosh, I have to stop and charge it every so often, right? And that's the joy of a plug-in hybrid. It gives you the best of those both worlds, or it gives you a decent part of both worlds, because it is a compromise. So there's that. So there are various ways you can get the Range Rover Sport. You don't have to get the plug-in hybrid, but it's not a bad one at that. So there you go. I like it. And if I had all the money in the world, I'd probably lease one. So there you go, my friends. If you like what we do, you can see our latest video right there. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.